Hey there, Hangouts is on. We are live streaming. Hey, this is a first video in a long time from the office, and this is Dr. G, and been last doing more bike videos. So as you may have seen, if you've seen my last posts, is that we had the 24-hour race, mountain bike race, which is a big annual event. It's been happening around Spokane for actually the last 20 years. They do these races different places around the country and around the world, and I had the opportunity to get involved with this one locally about 6 years ago. So anyway, I, as always happens during the race, didn't have an opportunity to do as much video because I get so caught up with my responsibilities as a racer. So couple things I'm just going to go through and kind of do a quick recap on what happened. So a little bit of a backstory, as I introduced in some of the other videos. I had said this is my 6th time doing this race, and it turns out that the promoters of this annual race here in Spokane announced this was going to be their last time doing it. It's their 20th running, and they are retiring. So we'll have yet to see if somebody's going to pick it up to continue the tradition, and we shall see. But in any case, kind of went like a number of other years, is that we show up on Friday and set up and then get ready for a race start on Saturday at noon, and it goes until noon on Sunday. That was last Sunday we finished up. I've been on a 5-man team the last 5 years and had some of the same guys and a few that have changed over the years, and so we set off. They had a record number of riders who signed up, and so there were, I think, 850 on total on the teams. So we had about 9 or 10 teams in our group, which is the 5-man team groups, and it was kind of competitive, so we didn't know how we would do. And as it turns out, we actually placed 3rd, which I felt very good about considering what we were up against. And the other 2 teams that took 1st and 2nd were made up of guys that I know of and have ridden with or raced against, and they are very top level athletes. And so anyway, it's great to have all these folks who came to the last and final 20th showing. So we ended up with 25 laps, and so each of us did 5 laps. So it's about a little under 13-mile loop, and we just passed the baton. We have a timing transponder that we hand off, so it's essentially a relay race to see how many laps you can do in the 24 hours. And so we were actually very consistent. We didn't have any problems, so we were very grateful and blessed, and that we all stayed upright and had no mechanicals. We had no crashes, and lap times were very, very consistent. We just were probably between 50 minutes and an hour on average. And so I was number 5 in the group, so I went last, and I ended up finishing my last lap starting it at 11:50, I think a little after 11:50. And yeah, so if you set off on a lap before noon, you get to finish that lap, and it does count. So probably came rolling in to finish that around, what time was it? 11:50, so it was about 12:40, something like that, and 12:45 probably. So anyway, couple of things though, just comparing and how I felt and how it went. I realized, and every year I've told my kids that I'm not going to do this race again because it's so exhausting. And the truth of it is, it's not the riding that's exhausting, although it is. You don't really get a lot of sleep. I ended up getting about not 3 hours, probably two hours at the most, maybe 2.5 hours divided in the night that I was able to doze. And so you don't ever really get any rest. But a couple of things, I felt really good this year. I felt just strong, and that my pace was more consistent, spread out throughout all those laps. In prior years, by the time I'm at the 3rd, 4th, 5th lap, I'm really feeling very tired. Muscle cramps have crept up, and even with everything that I've been able to do. So this year I had more of a lengthy training lead up, And I also was a little better about fueling in terms of just eating right when I get back. Eating, you have to eat proactively when you're in this mode, even if you're not hungry. And so, yeah, kept that going, got some rest. And then it's just kind of, I mean, you're just on autopilot. I would come in, I would, get some food going and prepare for the next lap so I didn't have to rush around, have the bike all set to go again, and the kit I'd be wearing. As we went into night, this was new. So we actually had, as anybody who was in the Spokane area saw, we got rain on Saturday night. And that's the first time in my 6 years of doing this race that we had rain. I don't mind a little weather, and I can push through it, and that's fine. But it was at night, it was raining, things got a little slick. And so it required, and it was wet, not just like damp, it was to where I had my fenders on, and I was soaked by the time halfway through that lap. It started out with, it was kind of light sprinkling, and then by the time I was done, this trail was pretty soaked. So trying to find the right line became more difficult, and a lot of people were slipping and sliding, and I managed to stay upright, but I had to adjust my speed accordingly. And made it through safely. But in the middle of the night to be dealing with that, it was unsettling somewhat, but you just push through. All of our guys got through that though. And what's amazing is that by the next lap, it was already starting to dry out. The rains let up probably, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 a.m. And then by around 6 a.m. when I did a lap, it was starting to firm up already. So that's a good thing. Our trails aren't too muddy. There's a lot of sand and a lot of good runoff. And so you could really avoid some of the residual puddles and stuff. And so I had a big water jug that I was that night washing my bike off. It was totally mudded over. Performance-wise, the bike was perfect, spot on, even with the weather. But I got it rinsed off and managed to get my next 2 laps on a relatively dry course. And even my final one almost was my favorite because I kind of paced it. The weather, it was just beautiful. Temperatures, I actually kind of was less concerned about being quite as fast and enjoying the scenery, so to speak. And there's a couple of parts where you're up a little bit and can kind of see out towards the Spokane area and the Spokane River. In any case, third place. We got our medal, and we got to go up at the end there. Exo Keto, our team, actually, we had the 10-person, which was 9 people, and the corporate category, we had our 5-man that I was a part of, and then we also have a 2-person duo that's from Portland, and they join us in camp with us. They finished 3rd this year, so that was kind of cool to see them get up there. And again, we had a lot of registered racers, and so it was cool to see that we did okay. The corporate also, they actually finished 8th, and I know there was some controversy about the way they track the laps. It has a electronic timing device, and there are a number of cases where they've actually missed laps. We're not really sure. This happened last year, and you have to just report it and have them double check and get it added. And this happened to us, and it probably wouldn't have changed our 3rd place at all, but we ended up showing us with 24 laps when we actually had 25. And then our corporate team was also missing a lap, which would have pushed them into 8th place overall. 8th in the corporate group. And there was, I think, 30, how many teams were there? I don't even remember now. Corporate teams were the numbers of teams. Let's see. So they did great, and had a real good time. But I guess a couple of things, the rain. The other was my knee. I have a short-term memory problem, actually make that a long-term memory problem, where I always forget the problems that I have. And it was like it's like, oh yeah, I got knee pain last year. So my left knee, after the 2nd lap, it just starts I notice in my patella a little bit of strain. And I think I was feeling stronger and pushing some bigger gears. And so by the time it was ending, I was really starting to feel it. And it really took me a couple of days. Here it is Wednesday. And I've been, doing some cold laser and stretching and topicals. And it's fine. It's just, I guess, a little bursitis is what I'm guessing, or that patellar tendon. She goes, really supports a lot of that whole entire quadricep muscle, basically for knee flexion. Gets a little bit angry on that side. So, but managed to get through. The funny thing is, was I'm actually riding, I don't feel the pain. It's after, so it's interesting. The yeah, so fueling, I already mentioned that about feeling like I stayed on it this year. I just kind of had a ton of food available, like different things that I could grab. I had some food that I pre-prepared with some meats and leftovers and veggies, and bars. I was grabbing some my favorite bars just to keep eating, hydrating, etc. So I experienced absolutely no cramps. I take that back. So while racing, I never had any cramps. I had one in the night, which is almost impossible to avoid, when I was laying down and then I kind of got up to get going again. I had a adductor cramp, and it just kind of moving my leg, and it worked its way out. Never was a problem again. And so anyway, yeah, it was a great event. However, as I told my kids, this being the last 24-hour race in Spokane, I'm going to be retiring doing these. I won't say that I would never do one again, but I'm going to focus more on just day races. And they do have some 6-hour races and similar that are more during the day. Because here's the thing, the race is not so hard because of the racing itself. It's the logistics of preparing, setting up, and tearing down. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I've always brought my kids out for the last 3 years or so. And so I've got 3 school-aged kids. I've got to set up camp for them. We have to have enough food for all of them. I bring all of our bikes out. And thankfully, I have a nice big pop-up with walls in our big tent because of that rain. If we hadn't had that, the kids were all snug as bugs that whole night. They didn't even experience any of the rain. And everybody stayed dry. And I was able to have my almost little mini studio. But it's a lot of logistical setup. And so it's literally, I mean, preparing for the week before, getting everything hauled out there, and then you have pictures of my car and the way I was able to load everything up and get back. I mean, it took me a good few hours just to kind of tear down camp, and being exhausted, of course, and I really was taking my time to do that. But in any case, that's what's exhausting. It's not the writing, it's just so I'm gonna take a break, and as they are supposedly, I guess, canceling or not doing them anymore, I won't be tempted to do it next year. So we'll see what happens. We do have Wednesday night races continuing, and I have one this evening, and that's what's happening. So I'm going to be wrapping up the office here to get out there and update that. I'm going to be spinning out, try to take it easy just to kind of ease the body back, and go from there. So I'll be posting some pictures and probably link them to our Exo Keto team page if you'd like to see some of that. And yeah, we will catch up with you soon and talk more on biking and other related health topics. Thanks for watching.